A Phoenix police officer now under investigation by his own department.
And that's due to new information uncovered by ABC 15 investigator Melissa Blasius, looking into citizen complaints of police misconduct for more than a year, airing nearly 100 stories. 1 week ago, she showed you mounting complaints against Phoenix's most senior DUI officer, Michael McGillis. And tonight, she finds Officer McGillis is also crossing the line by ignoring police policies, giving prosecutors an unfair advantage in court.
Drunk drivers can hurt or kill people, which is why DUI enforcement makes us all safer. But the officers who are making these arrests cannot violate police policy, cannot manipulate their reports or cameras, and cannot violate people's civil rights, even if it results in more DUI convictions.
Why am I getting pulled over?
Put your hands behind your back.
Excuse me.
Put back. Stop.
By now, you've likely seen Mariah Valenzuela's arrest. Mariah filed a civil rights lawsuit against Officer Michael McGillis in January, but she's not alone in alleging this cop was too rude or violent while making traffic stops. 7 other drivers made formal complaints in recent years.
Stop. Why don't you act like a young lady?
Something McGillis said on camera after arresting Mariah. Something we noticed this week is now being scrutinized as both a possible violation of Phoenix police policy and defendants' rights to fair trials.
When they stop a vehicle and there's passengers, doesn't have to be a wreck. Everyone's a victim.
McGillis's body camera catches him telling a sergeant how to manipulate information on DUI reports to give prosecutors an advantage.
If you put a passenger, they're defense witnesses. If you put them as victims, they're state witnesses.
Really?
And they don't get to interview them. They only get to cross.
They only that's a good idea.
And they don't get to conjure up a BS story.
McGillis was really trying to sell his theory.
Okay, the state's a victim. Okay, so is a child. Child's in a car seat, under 15, it's a victim.
Right.
So all your passengers are victims.
But that conflicts with Phoenix police policy. Right here, Operations Order 6.4 says names of witnesses, occupants will be listed in the incident report's other persons section. It's something you'd expect the city's most senior DUI motorcycle officer to know. But here's a 2019 DUI report where McGillis seems to ignore the policy and lists all 3 passengers as victims.
It's absolutely falsifying a police report. And you essentially are violating the person's constitutional rights.
Strong reaction from local defense attorneys who face Officer McGillis in court.
My overall impression of this guy is that he shouldn't be a police officer.
When I watched that, the first thing that I thought of was shady police work.
The sergeant does not correct McGillis about policy or training. Instead, he listens, jotting notes.
I can coach. I'll sit there in court going, it didn't happen like that.
Defense attorneys often interview DUI witnesses to learn how the driver was behaving on the road and how the officer handled the stop, sobriety tests, and the arrest. The defense can call them to testify regardless of whether the prosecution does. But victims, they get special protections from the prosecutor's office, victims' rights, which limits defense attorneys' access to them.
You are interfering with a person's due process, their right to a fair trial. You're interfering with witnesses that are part of the investigation.
After the ABC 15 investigators sent these video clips and questions to the Phoenix Police Department, Sergeant Ann Justice emailed us back saying the Professional Standards Bureau is investigating the statements made by Officer McGillis. But he's still on regular duty.
Where is he going to be tonight? He's going to be out there in his van pulling more people over and doing the same thing.
We asked the city prosecutor's office if they were okay with McGillis's tactics. The response, the city prosecutor's office does not oversee the police department or direct police officers in the performance of their duties, adding victims are ultimately designated by prosecutors. They won't say how often they deviate from Officer McGillis's designation. Again, Officer McGillis is involved in hundreds of DUI cases every year. It's unclear, though, how many of those cases will be affected by this new information that he's been inappropriately marking vehicle occupants as victims in the case. I'm investigator Melissa Blasius, ABC 15, Arizona.